Welcome to part 2. We're continuing with growing up black.
We need to express what we need from our husband. Our husband needs to express what they need from us, and then there needs to be a middle ground.
But I think communication is something that is not that's a learned behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like, communication isn't something that like everybody has communication skills. If that was the facts, then this world would be a much better place. But your upbringing also affects how you communicate with people. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've never had to communicate, like with me, like I said, I left my mom's house when I was 18 years old, and I've been on my own ever since. So I've never had to communicate anything to anybody because I've always been in the driver's seat.
Right.
So you just can't up and one day start communicating.
But you can up and one day decide that this is where I'm going wrong and know I need to fix it.
But that's what we're at with everything.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, we understand that it wasn't taught. We understand that we don't know. But now you can sit back and look at your relationship or look at your situations and be like, okay, this is what I need to do better. Right. And communication is just one of those things we need to do better. In my house, we just started a family meeting where we sit down once a month, and everybody, you can say whatever. Like, this is your time to get out whatever you want.
I was just about to say that. Like, we tried to start doing that when I was staying with my dad and my stepmom, but like every time we go to have these meetings, we'll have them, and then somebody takes something that I say or the next person say personal, so that the meeting never goes nowhere. And we always start out by letting everybody know, like, look, it's no guards, you know what I'm saying? Everybody guard is down. This is what we're talking about, because obviously it's too many grown people in this house and it's tension, so we need to talk about it. Yeah. And every time we try to talk about it, it just never went nowhere. Like, never.
That's
because everybody just, everybody just take everything personal.
Like, I want to go back to even the communication piece, because it is important, but I think before you can communicate, you have to be aware of what it is that you're wanting and what it is that you're missing. And a lot of times we just know something ain't right, but we don't know what's not right. And so being able to talk to someone or even try to figure it out, like, you know, if I've gone through all this stuff and I've learned this way of thinking and I have all these, you know, trauma experiences within me, it affects your ability to make rational decisions. It affects your thinking. It affects memory. And so sometimes you just don't know what it is that you're missing or what you're not getting. And it takes just being able to work with someone or someone working with you on, like, how do I even tap into that part of me that I feel like is lost.
Makes sense.
Counseling. That's what that sounds like.
But I will say, Ivory, you touched on something too. Even as a therapist, and I finished school in 2011 and started working in the field in like 2013. It wasn't until the end of last year that I even started going to therapy for myself.
Oh, wow.
Because first of all, they recommend it. So if anybody, you know, it's not recommended that you not go to therapy, especially as a therapist, because it helps us understand the process, because we are asking our clients to be vulnerable and talk to us about stuff, but then we're not willing to participate in that same relationship. So for me, I went, and I love going to my therapist's office. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna talk about this, and it's scary as hell, but the freedom that I feel, like just having somebody I can talk to, I know she's not judging me. I know she's not going to sit there and say, well, why you do that? And da-da-da, or tell me, you know, not to feel that way. Because sometimes I'll go to my friends and they be like, well, girl, you ain't got no reason to feel like that. Yeah, but I do. I do, though.
I was just talking about this. Like, I was just telling, again, my fiance the only person I talk to. I was just telling her, like, on a serious note, like, I want to do therapy just because I want to talk to somebody that doesn't know me. Like, when you talk to, and there's no offense to your family members or your friends that you talk to all the time, but they're only going to say what they know about you or what they think you want them to hear. Or, what we want to hear. They're going to say what we want to hear. So it's like, you want to hear from somebody different. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that's not going to judge you. Somebody that doesn't know you. Somebody that's going to literally tell you what it is from the nitty gritty and not going to hold back. Because typically your family members, they know your situation. Your friends, because they're your friends and they're close to you, you have opened completely up to them. So they only can tell you so much by what you tell them. And a lot of times it just becomes repetitive, and it comes cliche, and it comes where everybody was like, pray about it. And you get, and it's nothing against religion or anything, but you just get so tired of hearing that same thing, the norm, pray about it, or, it's going to be okay. Like, I know that, but I'm still going through it. So what do I do now?
And you get so tired of hearing it to the point where you don't even talk about it anymore. And then so now you're not talking about it to anybody, let alone a stranger or somebody you know. So now you got all this stuff
built up tension.
You know what I'm saying? And you don't know what to do with yourself.
And then that for me, just experience that spirals you into going into a depression. And a lot of people want to admit that, but for me, like it does. Like you find yourself you find yourself thinking that you don't have nobody to talk to. You know what I'm saying? And because your friends and your family are telling you the same things over and over again, you don't want to keep voicing that to them because you don't want to keep getting the same thing back. So you like I would say, you shut down, and you get to a point where you don't want to say anything, and then you don't say nothing. Then you start having all these fogged up thoughts. You get depressed, anxiety, everything builds up, and then tick tick tick, boom.
And then next thing you know, you just smoked an ounce of weed and 2
man.
You done went through 3 bottles of wine. I'm just
Man.
playing.
You done binge watch Black Mirror on Netflix. I mean, like
shit.
And what they don't tell you, even when it comes to like smoking weed and drinking alcohol, that if you are clinically depressed, it can interfere with the chemicals in your brain, where it's gonna make you more depressed when that high rubs
I
off.
be saying all the time, smoking weed. I swear to God, I be saying, man, like, look, if I just hit this blunt, bro, like, I'm gonna be good. But the minute I hit it, like,
you be all in your
I be in everything for that split second, and then I eventually mellow out, and I'm like, okay,
and you
this
just
is
took
what
a
I
whole
wanted.
blunt to the face.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Bruh,
you
then
sit
you-
over here saying.
You like, damn, I have a blunt normally used to get me up. I smoked the whole thing, like, sheesh.
Yeah, you find yourself needing more and more because those feelings are getting deeper and deeper. And another thing we don't talk about in the black community is suicide. It used to be where, black people don't commit suicide.
It's a white person thing.
It's a white person's thing. I
That's
have
everybody
heard
thing.
more stories recently, and as I'm getting older, it starts to hit home. Like, I knew this guy from grad school that committed suicide, like, last year. And it hit home for me. And not that, like, we were real tight, but he was an athlete. He was handsome. Everybody liked him. He had a good job. Like, had all the things that we're taught. If you get this, it makes you somebody.
Right.
And so just to hear about that is like, man, we really got to work just as a community, because, and even for him, people saw him spiraling, but by that point, what you reaching out to me for?
Right.
And so it's just about, even if you don't feel like anything is going on in your life, I am an advocate, not just because I'm a therapist, but see somebody. Because there were people in my life that weren't necessarily therapists that saved me from having to go through different experiences. Like, my mom was in a abusive relationship. I didn't know how to process that. And then I'm the oldest child, so my siblings did not see as much as I saw. And so growing up, like, it was like, what do I do with this information? Like, my family members knew, and all they could do was fight them. But then what happened when my mama go back? Nobody's really looking at it like, well, how are you being affected by this?
Because even like with my older sister, you know what I'm saying? Like, my sister, she has like a lot of kids. She's not really around. Like my mom has the kids and stuff like that. And I'm always so angry with her. Like, I mean, like angry, But then sometimes I have to like ask myself, well, maybe she saw something that I didn't. Maybe she experienced some things in life that I'm not sure about.
Just put yourself in her shoes.
Yeah, well, just trying to at least.
Right.
So just understand like where it could be coming from. So I'm like, okay, because our childhood wasn't like this horrible childhood or anything like that, but just like, okay, like maybe she saw something from a perspective that I didn't see something from, just trying to understand. And I think we go wrong with that sometimes. Like, we expect people to be a certain kind of way, and when they're not that way, it's just kind of like, now you're the black sheep of the family because you don't fall into our bubble of how things are supposed to be,
And understanding that everybody is different. Like, me, my sister, and my brother grew up in the same household for the most part. Me and my sister are about 3.5 years apart. My brother's about 5. We saw a lot of the same things, but it affected us all in very different ways. And so being able to understand, like for me, even as a therapist, like knowing that how, like, not trying to put it in my personal life. Because I can't be therapist to Erica because they've been knowing me since I was little and they going to call me out on stuff. But trying to think about it, like you were saying, Ivory, like how is my sister affected by it? Like when my brother, he may be that black sheep of the family, but he isolates, he gets in his mood. He don't want to talk to nobody. He don't want to deal with anybody. Depression.
Right.
We know it. We can know what it looks like. But even then, it's just about, you know what, I just got to let him find his own path. And being there when people need him. Because I can't be his therapist. I can just be his sister and not like, you know what, something wrong with him, this, that, and the third. But just being able to talk about it. We can all see the same thing.
Just trying to be empathetic to, I think that's the right word,
that's
empathetic.
The word.
You know what I'm saying? Towards other people who going through things. Like, okay, maybe they suffering from something that I don't know about.
Right.
So let me handle them differently. You know, because maybe they need me to just be a little bit more softer than I've been being. Because I know sometimes I can be real harsh on people.
I know I can too.
You know, it's just like, damn.
Yeah, Antuanette, since I've known you, you've been cutthroat.
I don't be meaning to be cutthroat. I have to work on sympathizing with people. Or sometimes I do, and then sometimes I get annoyed with it. You know, and that's just, like in my family, I'm the black sheep because I just don't understand. Here's a problem. You know what the problem is. Fix the shit.
Right.
Like, I don't understand the process between knowing you got a problem and not being able to just fix it.
Right.
Because in my head, that's how I work.
Right.
Like, I went through a situation or a period in my life where I was just unhappy. Like, I was really, really unhappy. And it wasn't with my marriage, it was with me. Like, I just got a promotion. So financially, on the outside looking in, it was like, oh, you should be good. But I wasn't happy with where I was in life. And then that's when I reached out to Ivory, and I was like, we need to stop Black Girls with No Resume.
Yeah.
Like, out of the blue, like, we have been talking about it for a year, but it was just like, I need something else to fulfill me because I'm not being fulfilled.
Right.
So in my head, I'm like, I got a problem. I got a solution.
Right.
Why
Let's
can't everybody do
fix
that?
it. Right.
Like, why can't that be? And then from that is why I become the black sheep of the family, because now I get annoyed with talking to certain people every day about the same shit.
Right.
Like, we just had this conversation yesterday, and we having this conversation again today, and we're going to have it again next week, and again the next week after that, and now I'm annoyed.
And it sounds like from a lot of it, you're that person where I'm like, I'm gonna take whatever risk or whatever steps necessary to get to my end game. For somebody else, change, you talking about I actually have to change at the core of who I am.
It's hard.
This problem that I have, sometimes it's better to hold on to it than to think about all the different possibilities. Because what happens if it doesn't work out?
And
then
that's
you
what
have
that's what I'm trying to fix within me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like, everybody not you.
I was just about to
You
say
can't
that.
expect everybody to be able to face a problem how you face problems.
And I know, like, with me, I have a hard time with disappointment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like to go through something just to be disappointed in the end.
Right.
So a lot of times, I just won't do something, or just I'll strictly avoid a situation just to not have to deal with that disappointment in the end. Like, I can't sit there and keep washing the wall and then not see it get clean.
Right.
Like, that's gonna frustrate the fuck out of me.
Right.
So I'm gonna turn around and not wash the wall.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not gonna deal with this wall, because if it don't get clean, I'm gonna have an attitude.
Yeah.
So to save me from having this attitude, I ain't gonna wash the wall.
But you still got an attitude because the wall dirty.
I mean, yeah, what you saying makes that makes sense.
Right.
But
Either way it go, you got
that's not how it's
Yeah.
received.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
No,
Like that sounds all good and logic. But
Right.
when it's coming time to me to make that decision,
You thinking about it.
I just rather not be, not
And
have to deal with it.
A lot of us learned a lot of unhealthy belief patterns and thoughts and things from our childhood. And so to go back and change the way you think is hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because then I have to teach myself a new way of thinking. And then
to
I got
do
to
that
get out of my head. And
the
I
old
got to
way.
practice it.
Yep.
And all this stuff. And it makes it that much more scary. Because, like, what you say makes sense. You know, if I'm not taught how to deal with disappointment, and even to take it back, just for example, your son, you know, if I never teach how to deal with this other side, then when these situations come up, I'm losing my mind because what am I supposed to do with it? You know, and so it really involves, like, having protective factors like friends and family that can be like, girl, you gotta do it. You gotta clean that wall, and I'm gonna sit here and let me hold the cloth for you. Let me hold the water. Let me hold the spray. But that involves you being vulnerable, and we don't want to be vulnerable.
No. We got a counselor, so we about to talk about it. I just had a conversation this week, right? And she came to me earlier in the week. We had a conversation, and what she said affected me. Like I got offended.
Right.
So I'm just trying to bring it back to her and
Right.
like, you offended me when you said this. I'm just not gonna be vulnerable with you no more.
Yeah.
Like that's not. I'm like, what do
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just telling you that what you had said. She was like, no, I'm just not gonna do it anymore because I can't even be vulnerable with you. I was wanting to throw my goddamn
And that's,
phone.
that's back to what you talked about at the family meeting.
Yeah.
Across the room.
Because that was me in the meeting. I'm telling, like, Mom, Dad, you telling me that I can be vulnerable, I can open up to y'all and let you have it how I feel inside. Okay, cool. Soon as I let you have it, y'all don't know how to take the shit.
Right.
But you can dish out the shit though.
Oh yeah, you can dish it out like a motherfucker.
I'm not even coming to you. Like I'm not trying to be negative.
Right,
with it.
right,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to be. I'm just saying like.
We should have been recording this.
Hey.
You know what? We
Hey.
about to have a drink for this.
So I'm just like, I'm in my feelings because I'm like, damn, she can talk to me and she can be vulnerable with me, but I can't be vulnerable with her because as soon as I come to her and I'm like, what you said, I feel like that.
Because
really
when
hurt
I'm
my
telling
feelings.
you that my feelings are hurting your feelings, that means I just need to keep my feelings to myself.
No, that's not what that means.
It means I come back to you as a friend, and we got to break down what happened.
and
Not take it personal, because we take a lot of stuff personal.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
I just want us to say what's going on in our relationship so we can put it all on the table and then move forward. That's all I wanted this conversation to be.
Because I know both of y'all, I know how each side is going. but for me, like, I'm not taking sides, but I understand where Ivory is coming from because that's me in the situation. I'm always letting you know what's going on, but then when you give it back to me and I might not receive it how you're giving it to me, it's like,
Let me tell
okay,
you
cool.
something
I ain't gonna
that
tell you shit no more. Bye.
when I go to this therapist, because I'm making an appointment with this therapist, this girl, she told me about like this program that she in, and you can pay like $50, and that's it. You just pay $50 and you go, But one of my problems is that my cutoff game is so strong.
Man, you.
It's so sad,
Oh, wow.
and I battle with like when I get mad at somebody, or when I decide like just
So
any
let-
like
cut 'em off.
when I decide I'm done.
Done.
Like my friends, they would talk about me all the time, and I stopped doing. I haven't did this in like 2 years. I think it's been about 2 years. But when me and Mo would get into an argument, like I kid y'all not, me and Mo could argue, and it could be about something so simple, y'all. I've been living with this man for 6 years. We've been together 8 years, so I've been living with him like probably a little over 7 years. I would look for somewhere to stay. No bullshit. Every time we get mad, I like pull out my iPad or I pull out my phone, and I be looking for somewhere to stay.
You used to do it at work. Like, what are you doing? Mo done pissed me off, and I need me a motherfucking apartment because I'm not finna deal with his shit. But what did you do though?
Like we got into an argument a few weeks ago, and I told him I want a divorce.
Can you help her on this?
What I will say,
And she know good
It
damn
comes-
well she don't want this man to leave
Right,
her.
exactly.
but no, how many people you know where when things get tough, think about fight, flight, or freeze. Basic survival instincts. Fight, flight, or freeze. I'ma run, I'ma stay, and I'ma become aggressive, or I'ma fight it out, whatever that looks like. Or I'ma freeze and I'm gonna be numb and I'm not gonna give you any response. And so when things get tough, I'm gonna do what feels best. You are me like 10 years ago. Like me in my college days, I got into it with my best friends in high school. And it was like we used to three-way all the time. And one day after the three-way, they stayed on the phone and they were talking about me and my boyfriend. And we were talking about them and they brought it back up. One of them made a mistake and brought it back up. And I was like, well, I thought our rule was, you know, we don't talk about each other without the other person being there, da-da-da. And it was like senior year, and all of us, our last name started with S. So homeroom, time to get yearbooks. I stood in there, and they sat behind me, and I did not cat dog nothing. I did not open my mouth because I was that person where if you piss me off, we ain't gotta talk.
Yeah.
And that's my fear. That's my biggest fear with her, right? Because I know how I am. So I know that when we communicate,
Right.
sometimes I'm very direct in my communication because I don't want you to misunderstand what I said. Like I said what I said. But I also know that I have to filter it or, you know, sometimes sugarcoat it. So my fear with her is one day I'm going to say something to her and she will be like, fuck this. Fuck this. I ain't want to do this no more.
Right.
I don't think so.
She
I
would
don't.
though. She was gonna cut me off the other day.
I think y'all, it's too much.
I'm like, I don't know if Ivory will call me today or not. Like that's
It's too
exactly
much.
what I said in my head.
And that's
But you look at her face.
thinking. That's too much history. That's too much history.
But you see her face.
And I do. She thought about it.
See, let me tell you
she-
something.
That she was over with in her
Let me tell you
head.
something. No, I love Antuanette. I love
Yes.
Antuanette to death. But I don't have a problem.
I'm just telling you.
And that's something I don't want to be that person
Right.
though. Like I
Right.
don't want to.
You got trauma.
Yeah. I mean, and like we all do. We all
Right,
got
right.
But see,
something
let me
that.
tell y'all something about my mama. My mama will cut a motherfucker off.
That's step.
And I've watched her do this my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I was raised by a single mom. She got it how she lived. You know what I'm saying? But if you wasn't here for it, she ain't here for you.
Right.
And my mama will put your ass out. I say my mama, she's cutthroat. She would cut a nigga off. You know what I'm saying? And I adapted to that. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I am. And I'm just like, how do I not be this person? But here I am, 32 years old, and old habits die hard. And I don't know if I can like reverse that, you know, because I want to be vulnerable. I want to be able to like let people in. But when you hurt my feelings, when you do anything to where I feel like the trust is gone.
Right.
I think it was kind of like backwards. So I've always been the one to be very vocal, to be very nice, kind-hearted, and to be very vulnerable to people that, you know, you might just come up to me and, you know, just start having a conversation, and I could think that you're good people, you know what I'm saying, and open up to you, and that has, I'm not gonna say just messed me up, but it has resulted into me having a guard up, and to me being so stiff to the point where now the person I am now, you're only gonna get a minimal, you know what I'm saying, you're only gonna get just a piece, because if I feel like I've opened up to you, that means I trust you enough to, you know, be my friend, or to be that person I can confide in, or just to be that person that, you know, again, I consider my friend.
That's how we started being friends.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But like you said though, when you do something, you know what I'm saying, that like one small thing, like, I mean, I don't like it. I mean, it's over with. And I've gotten to the point now where I can literally do it and don't think two bucks about it.
Let me tell you how unfair that is. So you all can dish out whatever y'all want, right? And we supposed to just sit here and deal with it and work through it and try to put forth all our energy. But as soon as the person on the other side of it says what you did just offended me, or the fact that you're doing this is affecting you, which is now affecting me, we done.
Well, you got the option to leave too.
I don't have the
But
option
that's
to
where-
leave because I love you. I don't have the option to leave because I
But
love
that's
you.
how
That's just how
that's how
in
we
our
think.
brain.
But
That's
not,
just how.
that's not factual.
I mean,
And And it's
Right.
not. And it's
like,
not.
I love you. I tagged her in a post the other day, and I was like, we going to counseling together. Before we got there in this friendship.
Do it.
Like, we
Do
gonna
it.
go to counseling
Do
before
it.
you walk out
Do
of my
it.
life.
Do
I'm
it.
something even though I don't have a mic.
Come
But
on,
think
babe.
about it this way. I always tell Tyler, think about it this way. I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. But God does not give up on you. God does not cut you off. So what gives you the power? I'm not speaking directly to you, but what gives you the power to cut someone off and not be understanding where they're trying to come from, or why they might have felt this way, or what were they thinking when they said, you never know what somebody's going through. So what gives you that power, or to hold that power against that person when God gave you several chances?
And she still try to tell me this all the time. But I just had a situation at work where I cut somebody completely off. And this is after maybe 4 years of friendship. You know what I'm saying? And I cut them off simply because I felt like they weren't adult enough to come and talk to me about the issue, about the situation. So for me, I didn't see no way to move forward with it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here talking like I'm Billy Badass, like I don't miss the friendship, like I don't care for that person, because I do. But it's just like, I'm not going to kiss your ass for something that I didn't do. And if you're not adult enough to come to me and say, hey, I did something wrong, then, shit, bye.
So, and so a few
Straight up.
points on that. Number one, we have the tendency to expect people to treat us and do for us the way we do for them. And that's what causes a problem, because, I'm there for you all the time. I'm doing all this, I'm doing that, and then you're not there. But people can only do what they're capable or what they're willing to do. And sometimes it goes back to, does she have or do we have the capacity to do what it is that I'm asking my friend to do? Because sometimes we just don't. And then the second thing I was going to say is nothing wrong with cutting someone out of your life if they are unhealthy and
Toxic.
that relationship is not benefiting
Right.
them. And so knowing the difference between me cutting someone that's unhealthy, or just like our season has run, and me cutting someone that cares about me, that is emotionally invested, and that wants to see me do well, and I'm just cutting them off because you said something I didn't like. So
We got to work through that. I
you
understand
got
that.
to work through that. But think about how we learn about conflict resolution. As black people, we're going to fight it out. We're going to stop talking. And there's really not a lot of other ways that we are taught.
When we first met, one of the things we would talk about is fighting. She was like, I just don't understand why somebody would have to fight. I'd be like, what the fuck you mean you don't know why somebody would have to fight? Shit.
You the person fighting. You're like, why you just don't fighting?
Again, we might have to fucking fight.
Me and
You
me
say
and you
some
with
shit,
it.
yeah.
two, they're
You
like,
say
well,
some shit. I don't have nothing else to say, so
And
now
I'm not-
I gotta fight you.
And I'm not going to argue with
But
you.
what's going to happen after the fight? We
Your
ain't going to
ass
like
will
each
be
other.
whooped.
Bad as you ain't hit my hand. Shit. I'm the baddest way because I beat your ass. But we still not going to like each other. The problem's still there.
And that's cool.
You know.
But I beat your ass, though.
And don't say shit to me.
You got
after that.
bragging rights for a little bit. Because after a week, ain't nobody going to think about it.
Whoever saw the fight.
And see, that's different because back then we didn't have technology, and you could let stuff go. That neighborhood fight, they gonna talk about it for a little bit, and they gonna let it go. Now when you fight, everybody world star,
That's true.
So you just gotta be mindful. Because I'm with you. I, as an adult, and I have worked really, really hard, and with the help of my therapist, if it's not affecting my family, if it's not affecting my livelihood, if it's not a direct threat to me, and it's the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat.
Yeah.
If it doesn't affect any of that, plus I'm not a fighter. I'm just not. We can talk it out, we can choose to disagree, and then we really don't have to deal with each other if it's just not that important. And we could just go along with it like that. Like, if it doesn't affect me, I'm not losing money. I'm licensed in 2 states. I'm not losing licenses. I'm not losing none of that.
Come through,
I don't work too hard to get to where I am. But then, when you think about what we're taught, even as black people, how to be once we're successful and what that looks like. Because, you know, even the statements, like, you can take, you can take the girl out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the girl. It's a way that we can still maintain our culture. Like, I can still be black.
Oh, yeah.
And still be successful without having to be, you know, ratchet or switch code and act white, you know. I can be who I am, and I have to know who I am in order to be that person.
Confidence.
We'll go around and we'll just like a round table and end it off. How do you feel like your childhood affected who you are today as an individual?
My childhood set the stage, like, for me I learned a lot of unhealthy things, but looking back, I only could learn what the people around me had to give. And so for me, being able to be exposed to different things, being in a place where it was okay for me to talk to people, I knew from an early age I wanted to work with kids. I went through a lot of stuff as a child where if it wasn't for me having people around me, I don't know where I'd be. And so I knew I had to be a voice for kids. And not even from a therapist perspective. I've mentored before. I have worked in daycares. Like, I just want to touch a life. It don't have to be multiple lives. I just want to touch a life. And so for me, my childhood taught me a lot. It made me who I am. But I'm at a point now where those things that I learned, I no longer need because I'm not in that place in my life. So I'm in a place where I can elevate. Like, I know what it means to struggle because I've gone through it. I know what it means to be hurt. I know what it means to experience disappointment. But I don't have to turn around and put those things out into the atmosphere. You know, I can now be a better mother because of my experience with my mom. I can create the playbook on how to be a wife because I didn't have it, which is good because I don't have nothing to follow, so I'm just making up rules as I go. You know, so for that, I am grateful for I've gotten to a place where I'm grateful for my childhood. Hasn't always been that way. But I am much stronger because of those experiences. And because of it, I'm better for it, I think. Yeah. Agreed. And I hope my kids don't have to go through some of the things that I had to go through.
Cool beans. For me, my childhood, because I don't consider myself fully grown yet because we don't have kids, and I am the youngest one.
Y'all are definitely adults.
Right. But for the most part, I grew up kind of early, so I think that my childhood is helping me grow simply because of the things that I went through. I just know now how I want my wife to be, how I want to treat my wife, how I want my family to be, and now I'm getting to a point where I'm not taking anything personal. And I'm taking all my experiences in for the good. And I'm looking at all my experiences, good or bad, but I'm bringing all the positive out just because I'm learning from everything. And like I said, I'm not fully there, but I'm getting to a point where I'm accepting my past and I'm accepting that it's making me a better person. So again, I'm not all the way there, but it's a process and I'm working on it. So yeah.
We didn't even really talk about your childhood, Antuanette. She was
white picket fence.
Yeah, that's pretty much. You know,
Daddy got her a bed
when I first met
Antuanette,
she told me that she was like, "Yeah, we used to go on family vacations," and I'm like,
we went to Six Flags. The good cousin had the season pass. Everybody else, all the other cousins went out for the
We went. I will say this, and I don't know if this needs to be, said when y'all do this again, but it's important. When you talk about the good cousin, what it's like to be that black family member that makes it in the family, and everybody else is still struggling. Right.
So
that's no words.
I don't want to keep jumping because we ended, but just to say this though, to get it off my chest, I feel like I'll say I'm blessed because I literally got y'all. Like, they can tell you I got the best of both worlds because I got the best of both worlds. So I know what it's like to be that successful cousin, auntie, you know what I'm saying, household, and then that going from that to all my cousins coming to my house, being the sleepover house, and to having all the food and all the groceries, to
You about to back up. I'm sorry.
going back to.
I know we're supposed to be ending it.
Yeah, I know.
But now I gotta back up because you just said that. So I never went backwards, right? So I was always the successful cousin.
Gotcha.
How did that affect you going from having to not having?
Man, it affected me a lot, just simply because I went from a household having, my biological mom and a stepfather. Pretty much, like, once my mom became pregnant, she worked and she was very independent, but once she became pregnant, like, my stepdad made her sit down. And from then on, now you're having kids, you're not working no more. I don't want you to work because I'm taking care of everything. So, like, when I say he held everything down, he held everything down. So, for me to get that and to knowing how, like, because my biological father was in my life, but, just to put it out there, he was in the streets, you know what I'm saying? So, it was two different upbringings that I had. So, it went from, that quote-unquote white picket fence to, the man supporting your family, paying for everything, to, your mom dipping on drugs and everything just changing, and you go from good to now you have to move with your biological father, your stepmom, and she's the only one working, but your dad is in the streets. So it's kind of like it's an uneven balance. But for me, it grounded me because I literally saw both sides. So I feel like it ain't shit you can tell me about life that I haven't been through. Like, so going forward, me getting older, it just helps me so much more because I know what mistakes not to make when I have kids, and I just know what to do just in my life, in my relationship, and I know what to do, and it might not seem like I'm doing that, but all of it is just a learning process, and it's just helping me along the way.
My mom yelled, like, just period, just adults in my household just yelled so much and raised so much hell that I always told myself, number one, we don't whoop AJ. And people say that, oh, it's because he a good kid. I don't know. It could be because he a good kid. But we got so many whoopings and we got yelled at and fussed at so much that I'm just like, I don't have to do this.
Right.
Like, surely it's a different way of parenting than always yelling and cussing these kids
or having
out.
to put your hands on your children.
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. Sometimes they be doing the most. I be like, shut the fuck up. But for the most part, I try not to. I don't hit them. Jaden got a whooping last week, and it hurt my feelings so bad, but I just had to whoop his ass. But I just don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like...
I was telling Zay the other day, like, when we do have kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, we just was wondering how, I'm not going to say I was telling her, we was just having a conversation and we was just wondering how our parenting was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think we both came to a mutual agreement that we're not going to whoop our kids either. Just on the strength that I feel like I just want to become, now, I will say this, I'm not going to be that kid. If you touch a socket, I'm just going to say, hey, no, baby, that's bad. You'll get electrocuted. No, I'm going to pop your ass so you know that's a socket.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, I want my words to go far. I want my looks to go far. I want to be able to raise that eyebrow and you be like, oh, my daddy not with that shit. Like,
Go ahead.
I will say, me and my husband, like, he's Haitian. So, like, they just got a whole different way of doing stuff. And it sounds like for you and I, a lot of our stuff is similar, Ivory. My mama was a yeller. My grandma is a yeller. When we get together on Thanksgiving and holidays, the house is loud for no apparent reason.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that we're mad. It's just that everybody's passionate and we loud.
It's the energy.
I have had to try to unlearn that.
My husband be like, yo, so why you so loud?
Right. And we just having fun. And sometimes you can't tell the difference between that and the argument.
She might be like, so can you just tone it down? And I'm like, I ain't loud. And you might not think you loud, but baby, everybody can hear you.
Right, especially if you're passionate about something.
And I'm very passionate.
But when I had kids, I said that I wouldn't be the kind of parent that I felt like my mom was. Mm-hmm. That it was very important to me that I instill esteem and confidence in my kids. That they knew that they were beautiful, especially for little brown girls, because they don't always get reinforcements that they're beautiful. And I try to stay away from, spankings and things like that. I try to take stuff away. I try to do punishment and things like that. But sometimes, and a lot of times I have to check myself to be like, see, Erica, now, number one, don't do this if you're angry. But number two, like, is this you or is this them? Is this your stuff coming out or is this them? But sometimes they respond better when they know I mean business. And for the most part, like, it's to the point, if I get the belt, they know, like, nah, mama really serious.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all about a balance, because I was like you. I said, I'm not going to whoop my kids. I'm going to do this. And kids are just inherently different. Like, you can't predict what your child is going to be like, even if you play out all the options.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when I had my first child, we weren't married. I was in grad school. I was trying to finish school. My husband was in school. We were struggling. I would work late nights. Even now, I still work some late nights. But how I thought parenthood would be for me, like, I remember my mom on some days getting up at like 5 o'clock, doing her hair. Like, she would put a relaxer in her hair, blow dry it, curl it, fix breakfast, get us up, get clothes ironed. That's just before 9 a.m. We go to church, we do all this stuff, we come home, she cooked dinner, and didn't go to bed till like 10 o'clock.
It's a queen.
And, when I tried to do that, I felt stressed out. And that's how it is.
But y'all portray and y'all do it so effortlessly to where we don't see no difference.
But see, I deal with this, like, me and Antuanette, we've had this conversation several times, because I watched my mama, just like you said, I watched my mama do it all. Like, I didn't grow up on fast food. My mama worked long hours. My mama worked sometimes 2 jobs at a time. My mama worked nights when I was growing up. But yet and still, my mama cooked dinner at least 5 nights a week. Yeah. Our clothes was always washed. Our hair was always combed. My mama's house was neat. They pick on my mama. They call her the Clorox lady. You know what I'm saying? Because Stephanie's house my mama mopped every day of the week.
Still.
But with me, I don't know if I'm coming or going half the time. Like, no bullshit. Like, sometimes, y'all, no bullshit. I got an alarm on my phone right now for 4 a.m. But once I do them 4 a.m. days, like 3 days in a row by day 4, I'm fucking exhausted. And I'm just like, how did she do this?
Hey, I'm not.
Like, you laughing, Tyler, but I'm dead ass.
No, I know. It's just like, how you express that shit.
And it's hard growing up with that kind of example, because it's like, if I want to keep up with that, I'm gonna run myself ragged. And what I have learned, like, at the time when that was going on, like, my mom was single. Even when she was married, at one point, her husband was in prison. It was a lot that went with it. And I'm sure my mom had a lot of stuff that was going on that affected her. And I don't know who she talked to about it, And so
or
what
if
I
she
did,
talk to somebody. Right.
And so I made the decision that I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be that person that runs. Now, I'm going to still do my responsibilities, but if I want to sleep in an extra hour, I'm going to sleep in an extra hour.
And there's nothing wrong with your child being 6, being able to make his own sandwich.
Right.
Or being able, to do what they do while you get that little extra sleep in.
But it gets to a point where you have to be able to tell yourself that that's okay, though.
Right. That's what I was about to say. Right.
Like,
we got to give ourselves.
I'm just now getting to the point when I'm able to say, I can't do this by myself. I can't help pay bills and be super mom and super wife and do all this. And you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody gonna have to help me.
And I'll say this. So even for me, I had a period in 2014. I lost my uncle, and it was like my uncle died. No, my best friend's mom died on a Saturday. So I got that call that Saturday. I got a call that Sunday that my uncle died. So we go through that. 28 days later, my grandfather was killed. I had just had my youngest child. I think I took maybe a few days off work just to go to the funeral, but I came back to work. I'm working with kids in trauma. I'm coming home. I'm being a parent. I'm still going like I'm going. It would be weekends where I would not leave the house when I got home on Friday until it was time for me to go to work on Monday. And it took a while, but once I had to tell myself, Sierra, first of all, you're depressed and you're not talking. I think I had one coworker and she was like, you need to go see somebody. And I was like, yeah, but girl, I feel like I'm getting better because number one, we tell ourselves we can do it.
It's a mind thing.
But it took a while for me to even be able to say, like, man, I was depressed. And not even, and to say it and be okay with it.
Right.
Because number one, it was okay for me to be depressed. I had just had a baby, life was changing. I had all of these significant losses. And then I still went back. And even thinking about it today, like, why did I go back to work? I would never understand that. Mm-hmm. But for me, at that point in time, I had to keep going. Because who's going to do it if I don't do it?
If you don't do it, who's going to do it?
But it's to a point now, you know what? I got clothes now that need to be folded up. And I'm going to fold them up eventually. But I can't keep sacrificing so much of myself for the sake of my house looking or being a Clorox house. Because my mama was the same. Like, every day her house had to smell like Pine Sol. And I was Cinderella. So since I was the oldest, I was the person that made sure her house stayed spick and span. And it becomes a point in time where you have to be willing to give up those old roles because they no longer benefit you.
Right.
And so it took like me going through and being depressed to be like, you know what?
My mama came over here the other day. She was like, girl, you need to clean up. I'm like, well, if I need to clean up, I just want to. And then she was just like, you know what? Never mind, Ivory. I'm like, okay, shit, as long as you know. Never mind.
We got way off topic.
Yeah, but
it was
I
a good
mean,
conversation, though.
it's growing up black, you know.
Yeah.
I never answered the question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer
How
it.
did your childhood affect you?
So, I was
that.
sheltered. I was really sheltered. In my life, I thought that everybody took vacations every year. Like, to meet somebody who didn't go on vacations and didn't travel was like, what you mean? Like, I don't understand that. I've never seen a food stamp, like the actual paper, in my life. I have no idea what one looks like.
Girl, we used to spend them.
So it was just
That's why I
the
said
projects. I didn't know what a project was. So I was like good in high school. I thought everybody lived how I lived. I thought everybody had what I had.
Right.
Even though, because my family, my dad and my mom are from the country, which is like 45 minutes outside of Savannah. So I didn't equate. And even their living was pretty. You know, their living was good. Like, they didn't have what we had, but they had nice houses and stuff like that. So I just assumed that that's what everybody looked like. And then I went from my dad's house. And even when I got my house, my dad would still help me. And my dad still helped me pay bills. He still came up and cut my grass.
Yeah.
He bought groceries for my house. Like, he was up, like, at least twice a month making sure that my house was maintained. Cooking for me. Like, don't get me wrong. We struggled for a while. And he helped. He would loan me money. And then I would pay him back. So I never financially had to go too long without anything. I just had to pick up the phone and be like, Daddy, I need this. And he'd be like, okay, he'll loan it to me. I pay whatever I got to pay and then pay him back. So my childhood didn't start affecting me until I got married. And I had to do it on my own. Because I could call my daddy. And I did for like the first year. And then my mom was like, you can't keep doing that. Right. Like, you're not letting your husband be a man because you keep calling your daddy before you even ask your husband. Right. So it affected me with my marriage more than anything else. Like, trying to be a wife. Gotcha. I'm still not there. Yeah. I don't want to be what the traditional wife would be.
You know, a lot of this is creating the life we want. Like, we were taught growing up that this is what life looked like. Right. And for a lot of us, certain parts of that just didn't work. Right. So we got to take the parts that work and then create the rest ourselves. Right. You know, and I think that's the important thing about learning from your childhood.
You know, the only relationship advice I got from my childhood was Martin and Gina. That's like, for real. Like, that was my like relationship goals.
The only
I didn't see healthy relationships like that.
For me, like I said, I saw both sides, but I did see, like, I saw my biological mom genuinely happy, and I saw a man taking care of her, taking care of the house. So for me, that's what I saw on the norm 24/7. So that was like, again, for me, that's what I thought that's how it was supposed to
Yeah,
be. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But then when life happens and you do that switch and it goes from white picket fence to okay, we got food stamps now, and it's just a whole nother ball game. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
just it's like a culture shock. But for me, it just helped me understand that everybody's not the same. Every situation's not the same. And like you say, from your childhood, you just have to pick what you can take from it, the positive from it, and just create your own. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do now.
Absolutely. It goes back to part of learning and growing up black is that we learn gender roles. And these gender roles aren't always accurate depictions of how things work. And so we're taught in a relationship like the man should be the breadwinner,
Right.
and I'm going to be Susie homemaker. And then what happens
Bit
when,
crappy.
what happens if my man is in a situation for a period of time where he can't provide? Am I going to look down on him because he can't provide? Am I going to judge him? Am I going to talk junk with him? Or is my aunt's going to call my man broke? And so it's about being able to, as we're redefining ourselves, redefine these roles.
Yep.
Because there are men who stay at home with kids. And
Yeah.
there are men that do all of these things. And it's about not necessarily what it is that's supposed to be a man and a woman. It's just, these are the jobs of our house. You do some, I do some of the other. And learning how to balance it that way.
And I feel like that's with us, like, that's where we kind of getting at with it. Me more so, I kind of came with the gender roles because that's how I saw things.
Right.
But for the most part, just being with her and understanding how she was raised, I'm not gonna say it was more so of a gender role, but it was just the difference between the upbringings and the difference between the cultures. But now that I see that, the more we're together, the more we do this thing called relationship and building towards a marriage. It's like, or working towards a marriage. It's like we're learning each other, we're understanding each other, and like you said, we're making our own blueprint for how we want our marriage to work, and not going back on how my parents were, her parents were, or just how anybody else was. We're doing this on our own, how we want it to be, so that we know how to raise our kids.
Yeah, and that's
And think about in our society when you're talking about divorce rates and how people get married 2, 3, and 4 times. But we're taught that if it doesn't work out, then, you ain't got to be in it.
what I was taught was I don't care what he doing, you do not divorce him. He could cheat on you 10,000 times. He could hit you. Long as if he hit you to the point where he about to kill you, then y'all can get divorced. But if he just like hit you every once in a while, marriage is just, in my family, marriage is just this sacred thing to where there is no such thing as I'm unhappy, so I want to get divorced.
With me, it was the complete opposite. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like everybody in my family is dealing with, like, no woman in my family is with the man that she had children by.
Gotcha.
So in my family, like, that's the norm. So it's okay to, if that shit ain't working out, to move on to the next. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I think that we're trying to, and I guess I'm trying to get there to the point where it's like, it's okay to work through things. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to say, you know what, we're going to sit down and try to figure out what the problem is and get down to the nitty gritty, and how can we compromise, and how can we make this better, to the point where we just not up and saying fuck it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, more than anything, I always wanted a family. You know what I'm saying? Like, from my childhood, growing up in a single family household, my dad was on drugs, my mom out here trying to figure it out all by herself. It's just kind of like, I want my family to work. I want my children to see what it's like to, grow up in a normal household. Like, we don't even argue in front of my children. I don't want to set no unrealistic expectations for
Right.
them. However, I just want them to, like, be raised around love and grow up and be happy people, because they grew up around happy people.
Right.
Right.
Not people suffering from heartbreak and
Right.
loneliness and, bitterness and all that other extra
Yeah.
shit.
And growing up, like, just from, what I'm saying, experiences and everything, like, that was, like, one of my main reasons for proposing to Zell, whatever. It was just strictly on, the facade of nobody in my family was actually married. You get what I'm saying? Like, everybody, like you said,
On top of the fact that you loved her.
oh, I love the hell out of her. That was coming.
Okay.
But just like Ivory was saying earlier, like, the facade of help
Not
me out.
facade, because facade makes it seem like it's not real. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
just
Yeah.
not being real of just the fact of like you claiming her to be your wife and that's actually not your wife. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, that's all I saw. Like, my dad always claimed my stepmom as his wife, but truthfully, like, we never, been to a wedding or actually saw like how a wedding was. So like, once you say it, you know what I'm saying, and
I
it's
thought your
projected
dad
out,
was
like,
married.
yeah. And when I was younger, me too. Until I actually got older to realize what a marriage was, and in my head, I'm like, y'all ain't married. Like,
Right.
this ain't how this supposed to be. But I get the situation, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying. But I
yeah.
always told myself that's one of them life situations that I went through and I learned from it, and I'm not going to make my situation be a
Right.
facade. Like, mine is going to be real. So, like, I've been with this girl 7 going on 8 years this year, so it's like, come on now, like,
Yeah.
it's supposed to happen.
It
And if you
sounds like
feel
they
that,
the one
like,
that's holding it up now. That's
like,
They was like, I'm
just
not in a
saying.
rush to be married.
One of the
Goddamn, we
things-
love each other.
I think it's important too, as we're talking about like what our experiences were like growing up black. When you were talking about like divorces and stuff, you got to consider how that affects the kids too. Because a lot of times when you do decide to divorce, it takes away your child's perspective and they have to create
Yeah.
a new normal. And depending on a lot of different circumstances, they may have a more difficult time with adjusting.
Yeah.
And so if you are going to bring that perspective or bring that into the conversation, make sure we ain't just divorcing because I don't like something you said.
Right.
Make sure it's like legit,
It need to be a
because
deal breaker.
I've had kids that I've worked with where they stop talking to their parents over this.
Oh yeah.
So it gets serious. So you just gotta be prepared. Like, don't let that emotional baggage from your childhood stop you from being successfully happy.
Right.
Or even just content. Because, I mean, we're not going to be happy all the time,
Exactly.
100%. But let it contribute to the factors that make you happy.
Renee affect you as an adult.
I think it definitely played a big part about who I grew up to become. Um, like you mentioned before, I'm just trying to move away from that. Like, I'm trying to reverse the damages of my childhood. And not that just my childhood affected me, but just like the decisions that I made as a result of my childhood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just trying to come back from that and just be a better person to grow from everything. Like, I don't think I was ever like a victim as a child per se or anything like that, but just trying to recover from my childhood. I'm just trying to raise children that don't have to recover from their childhood.
Gotcha.
So,
Makes sense.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give to parents so that their children do not have to recover from their child?
For me, if you feel like your childhood is getting away of anything that you have going on, I say go see somebody. Like, I am an advocate, and not just because I'm a therapist, I'm an advocate of just talking to someone. And so, there are a couple ways you can get on Google and type therapist in my area. You can go on Psychology Today, and they'll show you a listing that comes with pictures. So if it's important for you to have a therapist that looks like you, you'll be able to see that. There's also Therapy for Black Girls, and you can Google, and it's a directory. The lady that runs it is a therapist here in Atlanta. Her name is Dr. Joy Harden. I'm pretty sure that's her last name. And she's awesome. I think she has a group on Facebook. There are a number of different directories that are coming up, like Therapy for Black Girls. So if it's important for you to make sure your therapist looks a certain way, or whatever the case may be, you can look and see what they specialize in. I think that's important for you to get an idea of whether or not this person can handle what I have going on. Because I'm not going to see a therapist who doesn't specialize in maybe some of my same things,
Gotcha.
like transitions or things like that. So it's about communicating, like opening the doors to have those things with our kids that we may not have heard or had But those would be my two main things: get help for yourself, and then learn to communicate with your kids. Kids are open books, and they will pretty much, if the relationship is there, they will tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
And they just so innocent, and they'll say it. So just being able to build on that.
Yeah.
I just preach open parents, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you can be, you can be a parent and you can be, you can be a parent. You can have kids that respect you and understand everything you say, and also be open and comforting to them as well, and don't have to be so strict and so overbearing.
Make them be ashamed to be themselves.
Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
don't let your kids be who they are and learn them, because
Right.
it's all a learning process. Like,
Okay, not to be perfect.
right,
Yeah.
and let your kids know that they're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. This was fun. Did y'all have a good time?
I
Yeah, I
did.
did.
Thank
After I
you for
opened
the
up.
invite.
Thank you for listening. This was fun. We had a good time. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as Facebook and Instagram. And this is Black Girls with No Rhythm.
And we're out.